today we have Dr. Avisek Lahiri as our speaker. Let me give a brief introduction about Dr. Lahiri. Dr. Lahiri graduated from IEM with an ECE degree in the year 2012, and then he went on to pursue his master's degree and PhD in computer vision and generative deep learning and machine learning from IIT Kharagpur. Along the way, he interned in Cognizant University of South Carolina as a Viterbi Indian intern, ISRO, Google, Twitter, and Facebook. He then joined Google as a research software engineer in November 2020, and he has
Thank you.
he has 182 citations in his numerous research papers as of November 2021. So his interests broadly lie in adversarial learning, generative modeling, domain adaptation, multimedia systems, and medical image processing. So he was a HLF young researcher, and he received the Qualcomm Innovation Fellowship twice. And he also received the ACM India Travel Grant for publishing a paper in November 2014. Sir, we are really delighted to have you here, and it's an honor to be in your presence. So, could you please tell us about yourself for a brief introduction that you would like to give?
So hi, good evening. First of all, Sagar, thank you. That was quite good introduction. Really humbled by that. I think you covered majority of my introduction. So yeah, just as a brief, yes, I'm currently working as a research engineer at Google Research, working on computer vision stuff. And yeah, as Sagar pointed out, last year I graduated out of Kharagpur in masters on statistical machine learning, then shifted in PhD to computer vision. And I was fortunate enough to get exposure in different organizations as interns, mainly for vision and ML applications. Yes, happy to attend the session today and looking forward.
So we would like a very general question at the first, that how did your early career choices and interests lead you to where you are today? And what were the various hardships faced by you and how did you overcome? So basically a brief of your journey and your choices till now that you would like to tell us.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I won't say that I always had MS PhD in mind, like when I was at your age doing undergrad. So when you reach third or fourth year, you do tend to throw hands at everything, let's give GRE, let's give GMAT, CAT, GATE, whatnot. So yeah, to be truthful, I ended up giving all that. Right. There's no really guiding course to let you know what to do. But I think during my third year, when you do the third or fourth year of undergrad, when you do the thesis, the project thesis, that's when I first got a first flavor of research. I was then working on crystals, it's part of semiconductor stuff. But yeah, it did really give me the first joy when you get out some new results of your own, and then you get your peers to applaud for that, acknowledge that. So that was I think would be the starting vibe, which I felt that okay, research is something which I would like to see myself in. But having said that, as you see, I'll drifted away to the job that you get after undergrad. But yeah, spending after some months there, I did feel the need to come back to my engineering background or maths background. Was not happy what's going on there. It's not too, but yeah. So at that point of time, I revisited, giving in the GATE again, and then after I joined masters at Kharagpur, then there was no looking back. I got an awesome advisor and always persuaded me that. So I joined in 2015, right, at Kharagpur, 2014. So at that point of time, the machine learning domain was really starting to take a giant leap. It was already there, but it was during the time of 2012 and 13 when the it's came into picture and everybody started talking about ML, computer vision. So I did start my MS thesis with the plan of working on video encoding, more from a signal processing aspect, but then slowly but steadily shifted to ML. And yeah, if you do then the related coursework I did during my coursework duration, one or two good projects. So that really set the tone. And yeah, after that, the journey has been, I think, smooth. I mean, at least I enjoyed what I was doing. PhD is never so smooth to say, but at least you need to enjoy what you're doing. And so the summary is, when I graduated, to be honest, I really didn't have the clear picture that I should be doing a PhD, because we are all too young at that age to take the decisive call. But at some point of time, you get the call back somewhere internally that I want to do this, not stay in a job which I got after undergrad.
The next question that is coming up is that since you have studied in IEM and then you went to pursue your master's in IIT, so what research culture and work culture did you find different in IIT as compared to in IEM?
Yeah, like, to be honest, at that point of time, so yeah, to be honest, like, I started my the so-called research journey from the days of IEM, right? Because that's when I got my first paper out. I was working with a professor who joined our department and working on photonic crystal. So I should acknowledge that he was one of the first people who motivated me to take up research and not to do like the usual like software stuffs or small projects as fourth year thesis, right? So that was the first challenge that he encouraged me to take up. And then obviously at that point of time, at undergrad level, you are not that much exposed to research, but things really change, right, when you come to Kharagpur. So when I came to Kharagpur, I was immediately placed in a lab where you're like surrounded by PhD students. The professors themselves are publishing actively. So I would say that was a major shift, at least back in the days of 2013 or 14. Right now, I should be honest with my alma mater. From IEM, I see a lot of undergrads doing awesome research, because 6-7 years down the line, the mindset of the younger generation has changed. They might not just be only focused on jobs after undergrad. So now even IEM really has good research culture going on. But yeah, at my point of time, when I came to Kharagpur, the first thing which you get is the resources, right? You have ample computing resources, you have like intellectual resources to share and talk with. So it's very conducive, and I restate every now and then. I got two awesome professors who like narrows down you like how to proceed once you. So this is a possibility to get drifted, right? If you get too much resources, there's a possibility you might get lost. So you need someone good at the top level to guide you. So I did get that, and so that I think would be the main difference, that the computing resources and the number of, let's say, similar like-minded people that you share your ideas with. That was a major shift.
So the next question is, what are the responsibilities of a research software engineer? Now basically we know the responsibilities of a regular software engineer, but what does a research software engineer do?
Yes, it's a very relevant question. So it really depends on the companies, right? So I've been across several tech companies. So for example, Twitter, Facebook, Google. So I would say research software engineer, practically, at least at Google, we do core research throughout the day. There's no difference between not major difference between a research scientist and research software engineer. Maybe as a software engineer, we have that extra responsibility of like making things work at scale, like come in when the research actually needs to go into, let's say, product launches, or like, let's say you are trying out Google Pixel cameras, right? You try out new features. Obviously, there's a lot of research and paper going on, but then somebody has to step in, right, to actually take it to the last mile before it reaches the product, right? So the risk, I would say 70 to 80% of the component that I do every day at Google, and then there's this 20-30% expectation that you would also make the go to production. And it's a similar vibe across a lot of other companies in Twitter, Facebook. Usually, if someone is, let's say, a research scientist, his or her main objective would be to bring out absolutely novel ideas, get papers out, but they are always working along with research engineers who also simultaneously work on those ideas, but have that extra task of making things go to production, right? So yeah, that would be thing. But majority of the time we do new research, read papers, implement new ideas, publish papers. Yeah, so I would say if anyone is thinking too much whether to go for a research software or research scientist, there will be a very thin line of difference. But you do get the difference, right? It's quite different from an usual software engineer because here your domain expertise is really tested. Like even when you're recruited or when you are assigned a project, because you should know the maths and the domain that you're working with. It's not just about coding. It's coding for a particular subject matter in mind, some computer vision application, some NLP application. So that's why majority of the time you might see that research engineers having PhDs or masters with 4 or 5 years of experience on a particular field, and then only you would see them as research engineers.
How, like at Google, if you talk about, there are multiple projects going on and there are so many people working. So what is the workflow? For example, if you talk about Google Maps, at the time Google Maps was being built. So first is the ideation, and then it passes through all the hierarchy, and then it goes to the research phase, and then pass it to the production. So what is the workflow from idea to final launching in companies like Google?
Yeah, I think in majority of these research labs, firstly, when you join these companies, right, they are pretty much mature. So you have thousands of problems being solved already, right? So usually you would find yourself fitting into one of the job profiles where the problem statement has already been passed, it's been worked on. But these companies have this good culture. Every half yearly or so, they conduct research hackathons, right? So we always have this hackathon nature like subdued within us when you're working full time. So we do get like 1 week or 2 week time of doing hackathons. So you work on crazy projects. You have all the liabilities, computation. You have all the freedom to work with all the. So if 1 or 2 of those ideas strike out, seem promising, then you take it up to a higher level and you show the business use case. And I think a major chunk of like Google products came out of good hackathons, like major products and vertical research verticals. Like the health has got a lot of imprints coming from internal engineers who were suddenly excited to do hackathons. Because we navigate through conferences, try to pick up new ideas, then come back, and then this kind of quick stints or hackathons really help in getting totally new ideas into play. I mean, as I was saying, as we talked about Google Maps, right, that somebody might have just thought of crazily sitting on 1 or 2 weeks to work out the plans. Now, if you join Google Maps, it's quite matured as a product, right? Now you know what all things to work on. But if you want to work on something totally new, then usually it sparks up as so this company is open-ended research also. So it's not that you always have to keep product in mind. So that's a good thing, a freedom that you get, like even in Google Research, Brain, DeepMind. So you collaborate a lot with open-ended research. You not always focus that, within 6 months I have to bring this product out, because you never know, like you might work on a product, work on a research, and suddenly it becomes acceptable into a product area. Like for example, you might have known like DeepMind was recently working on that deepfold paper, deepfold work, where you can predict protein structures using RL and stuff. So that was open-ended, and then thinking of making it for drug discovery, right? So you never know when open-ended research goes into product. So yeah, it's a mixture of getting liberty and freedom to do a research you like. You convince your upper hierarchy that this looks promising and why it looks promising. And we also have these hackathon cultures where every now and then we spend 1 or 2 weeks crazily working hours it's back to college days.
Okay.
And it's very much appreciated across all the halls.
You have worked in the field of computer vision. So currently, what are the hot topics, or what are the upcoming, the new technologies that we can expect in this field? Or since you have worked in Google and Facebook, so if they're bringing out some new technology, or what are the hot?
So hot today, nowadays everyone talking of metaverse, right? So
Yeah,
it's now
exactly. I
common.
was also thinking of that only.
Yeah. But the technology behind that, I just some days before I posted also on my LinkedIn feed about possible research avenues for students who want to take up computer vision standing in 2021. So I pointed out around 9 or 10 good topics, which is looking promising. So one of the things which is inevitable for someone new today to start looking at is to look at 3D computer vision's depth sensing, because the era of 2D computer vision it's going on. But now, as you can see, we are moving towards augmented realities, perception, depth, and whatnot. So I would say like this 3D computer vision is going to stay for some time now, because we are now heavily investing. Products are coming up that would drive the research even more. Maybe 5 years before till now, you would just see some crazy sci-fi movies with all these AR and VR displays. It's Iron Man putting up stuff screens in front of his home. But now things are starting to become reality, right? So when the product comes up, obviously, then the research drive also gets accelerated. And that's one of the aspects I would say if someone is newcomer to PhD or research line, and the absolute fundamentals of 3D vision, it's very essential to go through. And also drifting away, now people are starting to embrace computer vision in other fields also, like for example, very important fields like industrial security, industrial like manufacturing qualities. Like previously, for example, let's say in a production house, you used to have manual people looking at the products, if there are any defects or dents or something like that. Now things are getting automated, like you are producing goods and commodities at a large scale, so you need automated processing. So in industrial automation, computer vision is playing a lot of roles, and trust me, there's millions of dollars flowing around because things needs to be automated, and it's all vision, right? You just need some sensor to inspect the objects that you're producing. It can be a smartphone, it can be like a steel, it can be chocolates, anything. You just want to make sure that before it comes out to the customer, everything is fine. So in industrial automation, computer vision is playing a role. Agriculture, weather forecasting, you would see Google heavily investing in weather forecasting. So using geospatial data like satellite images, not just computer vision, but other signals like wind currents, ocean currents. And then people are exploring underwater marine life cultures. So what I'm saying is that apart from computer vision, what we know till date is just like segmentation of roads or classifying cats and dogs. Those are okay, those are good, but those are good for, let's say, academic papers or to some extent our daily lives, or like the face recognition and stuff. But now the importance of vision is slowly getting stitched into the everything of our society, like every small aspect of society which why computer vision usage. So, and those are some of the use cases I said: weather forecasting, agriculture, industrial automation.
This metaverse, the metaverse concept also, it's a very it also requires the concepts of computer vision, I hope.
Oh yeah, yes, a lot of vision is there. So if you look at the Ray-Ban stories from Facebook, they have this camera on sunglass, right? So it's an egocentric camera. So it's still image, but it's like it's got this fisheye kind of field of view.
A
So there's a
3D
yeah.
type of hologram.
Yeah, so it's computer vision. It's computer vision, and also you have to do all this processing, let's say on device, right? So this low power models for bringing out efficient vision models. That's also, it's now becoming quite mandatory, because previously, like as I said, 4 or 5 years down before, people were publishing papers running on big gigantic clusters of GPUs. That's good, but now people want them as products. So you also need to build efficient models for vision. So that requires like knowledge of vision, knowledge of optimization, linear algebra. So how do you prune big models to work efficiently on the small devices?
There's a question coming up from some of the students. Like, since you have applied and interned in many foreign universities, so how is a research proposal graded as strong when you apply to foreign universities? What are the things that we need to keep in mind for a proposal?
Okay, so firstly, I did my internship at Viterbi, right? So Viterbi has got a little bit of streamlined selection procedure, like you might be in the top 3 or 4 of your branch, CGPA something. So I would say, to be honest, in Viterbi, the strength of your research proposal might be secondary. If someone is willing to apply for Viterbi, there I think the CGPA and your curriculum activities which you have done plays a major role. But same is true for another related internship called SNBOS internship. That also is, I think, more focused on your academic performance. Because that's true, because usually I did get the internship during my master's, but it is also open for 3rd year and 4th year students, right? So it's practically not expect a 3rd year student writing a very strong research proposal. I mean, the candidate is just starting to explore, so how can that proposal be so strong? But there are other internships like in ETH or MyTax where you do need to write a research proposal. So here is what I would suggest. A proposal is strong. The strength of proposal is strong. It's relative, right? So you first might need to, let's say, boil down to 4 or 5 professors whom you think you want to work with. So then suggestion, just read 1 or 2 of his team's recent papers, build an understanding, and even if it is a little bit of delta contribution that you think you can make, like add that as a possible solution that you're thinking of. Instead of just saying, hey professor, I just read your paper XYZ and I want to work with you next summer. Instead of that, you said, okay, X, I found out this might be a scope of improvement. This might be another alternative way of approaching. I'm still studying, I'm still looking at that, would be great to work under you if I can pursue this idea. But the truth is that your idea might be naive, and even the professor might think it might not help, but it shows your intent that you are willing to think apart from what is already written in their paper. It's very easy to just read a paper and just say out what is written, but to come up with 1 or 2 alternatives, that's at 3rd year or 4th year level, that all I would say a professor would want to see. And this is just an internship, it's not also a PhD application where they really want to dig deeper into your intellect of research. So just try to come up with 1 or 2 alternative solutions which you think can make the paper strong. And I mean, the introduction and the conclusion of an SOP, I know you're comfortable writing, you have this template. It's the contribution that you want to make that would really make a difference. And that's how I approached it, even when I wrote my SOP for Viterbi. And that's how I always ask my juniors, like, do recommend 1 or 2 solutions to the papers.
So now we just talked about your work and your responsibilities at Google and Facebook and an experience. So I also saw that you have experience with ISRO. So how was your experience with ISRO, and also how did you get a chance to work with ISRO?
So so usually it's a collaborative project. A lot of projects goes on with IITs, CDAC, ISRO, DRDO. So it was one of the sponsored projects. like it's quite common, right? For example, you might know in the foreign universities where you write proposal, grants, and you get the projects from industries, research labs, and you work on those projects. The similar is the case here also. The IITs, NITs, ISCs do tend to work with a lot of government organizations or for building some prototypes. So a part of my master's thesis was devoted for one of the projects in that proposal. So I was working on building machine learning models for compressing videos. So usually in traditional video compression, you will learn if you're in third or fourth year signal processing, or you do the usually motion vector encoding so that you don't send the entire frames, you just send the residual frames, the displacement vectors and stuff like that. But then came the era of machine learning where you can learn how to compress data and then transmit, and then at the decoder side you can receive back the signal. So there are a lot of ML applications in multimedia processing, so that was one of the prototypes that we worked on. And yeah, it's quite great, like you get to interact every quarterly with the ISRO scientists to do evaluate your work. They send out improvement suggestions, you get appreciated if they think it can be like integrated into one of their future products. So yeah, whenever they think of some product and want to make a prototype, usually they would send out advertisements, and the IITs, ISC profs take up those projects, and it becomes a good part of your research because those are some unsolved and unexplored territory that ISRO wants to look at. So it's a good experience. I think even in your college you can reach out to professors if they have such collaborations. You do get good chance to visit their offices sometime, present your work, so you get a roam around the office, get some tours. That's always inspiring, right? See, ISRO has got dedicated teams who does computer vision stuff, so like geospatial signal processing, satellite image processing. I am connected with some people who work actively with those research areas. Yeah, hopefully more people join them. I mean, they have this recruitment page there, so even with masters and PhD, you can try to select any opening to join them. But there's still some context. They do have dedicated teams who does open-ended research, and their research is pretty impactful, right? They want to solve actual problems. So I do know one of my profs here work on satellite image processing, like how is a vegetation of an area getting over time getting reduced by the overflooding of rivers, right? Because water bodies are eating up the land masses each year slowly but steadily. So you need some predictive models to do. Satellite images also helps you to find out new minerals because each spectrum of, it's not just RGB image, it's IR images, so each spectrum has their own signature of reflectance, like in different surface. So you get all this new modality of images and videos, and then it comes down to again your image processing and computer vision knowledge. Just 4 or 5 years down before, machine learning was just like restricted to all those natural images, right? That restricted to, let's say, just academic papers or some demos by big companies. But now people really want to see them coming into everyday use. So we see a lot of uses in your smartphones. They are all AI-enabled stuff, but these are some of the areas where people don't know. But like, for example, Microsoft spends millions of dollars on agriculture AI. So how can you do smart farming? Right? You just send out drones to look at trees and the quality and whether a certain fruit has ripened or not. A certain portion of your field has been infected by weeds.
Even Microsoft is also working on that, the GitHub Copilot feature. So, like, what do you think of that? It's, they are thinking of automating coding now itself. Like the work which builds automation, they are automating that work itself. So, what do you think of that? So, like, are they, according to you, proving to be very beneficial, or if you think they have some negative aspects, or what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so honestly, like, I don't spend much time on that because, my experience is very limited with that, but I do feel if there are some basic routines of code which you can predict that the user is wanting to make. So let's suppose you define a list, and it's very evident that you want to sort the list, and if the program can suggest that, it's fine. But yeah, whenever new technologies come, we see it with skepticism, right? What if this becomes automated? Like when this natural language in this BERT came out, we started thinking, oh, it can write its own stories, it can write its own novels, should we allow it to progress or not? But we do see a lot of other benefits from BERT also coming up. So this Copilot is a good thing, because currently in Gmail also right now, you have this auto sentence completion, right? So if you can predict what you're going to say, that's good, right? I mean, that's technology is all about saving our time. But yeah, for beginners, I don't think that feature is good. You don't want someone to auto-complete your codes. Yeah, but
really learn in that.
Yes. But let's say when you have like 6-7 years of experience and you want to do some basic operations, like if it is already suggesting you, then it's a good thing to work on. But yeah, I would be honest, I haven't played around much with that, so my opinion is quite limited. Yeah. But we don't use that feature inside Google to automate codes.
Yeah, next question would be, how do you think IEEE can benefit people in research, and what impact has IEEE had on your career until now?
So here's the thing, IEEE, right? So firstly, if you are into research, it's good that you associate yourself with that body, because it's kind of a internationally acclaimed organization, right? So at this point of time at your career, you might be student members. As you grow, you become a member, senior member, full-time members, steps like that, right? So when you go from member to senior member, it's kind of a recognition from the community, right? That somebody is acknowledging your work. And believe me, when you go for, maybe not right at this point of time of your career, you will appreciate maybe 7-8 years down the line when you go for, let's say, promotions or tenure track professorship. So these things matter, whether this body is like ACM, IEEE, whether their body acknowledges your quality of work, right? So that's one thing. That's why you should keep yourself updated with some ACM or IEEE bodies. And also, like, low-hanging short-term benefits as a student, if you enroll yourself as a student or in conferences, you do get good discounts, substantial discounts and good IEEE conferences. Then IEEE gives you travel grants. Sometimes it's not possible to get from universities, right? So IEEE has this section for getting travel grants. Those are decent or good conferences. And then IEEE also hosts regular, let's say, industry talks with good researchers, professors. So all these things are taken care, right? So I'm sure you might also be an IEEE student grant. So more often than not, you might see someone getting invited. So you never know, like very often when not some professors get invited, you might find the field interesting, right? So indirectly it helped you. Why did it help you? Because you were in the main list as being a member, and suddenly that connection came up, right? So all these things spark out, but in the long term, it's good to be associated. If you want to be in research, it's good to be associated with one or two bodies like IEEE or ACM.
My next question would be, what according to you has played a major role for you to become a research software engineer in Google? Because it is almost everyone dream to work at Google, but only few make it there. So what according to you led you to there?
It's a slow process, I would say, obviously. Like when I started my master's, when I first came to Kharagpur, well, yeah, even at that point of time also it was my dream to join, but I was not sure of which paths to take. Because when you think of Google, Facebook, immediately you get afraid, right, as a young person. It's natural to be. But then I realized that, so it didn't happen overnight, right? So initially I got the Google PhD fellowship, which I would say played a big role. So that fellowship is awarded to 3 or 4 person per year in India. So once you get that, you come into the Google research limelight. But even though you have to crack the internships and all, but so once it was there in my CV. Then I did my first internship at Google. It erased out the fear from me to some extent that, okay, even I can work there, I can contribute. So yeah, once you have that first internship, the next summer onwards, you tend to get contacted by other people, right? Because you have started the journey, right? So, and that followed up with Twitter, Facebook, and me interning at Google again 2 more times. So by the time I finished my last internship at Google last October, I've practically worked with them for around 3 years as intern. So I didn't feel myself as a new joinee anymore when I was going for the conversion process. But some suggestion how to go about that, especially at Google Research, is that firstly, yes, so you have to do very good research. Your thesis has to be either master's or PhD thesis, whatever you're targeting, has to be solid with 1 or 2 good publications, and you have to build up your profile. It's not suddenly you have 1 or 2 good publications that you can think that, okay, it might be Google Research. You have to open source your contributions. The reproducibility of your results over GitHub plays a major role, because it shows the intent that if, let's say, Google hires you, or say Facebook hires you, they can trust on you to reproduce papers and that you code up faithfully, right? So do make sure that you open source whatever contributions you make, either it be a small paper, small hackathon project, anything. And yeah, I would be honest, like getting into Google Research just immediately after undergrad, it's quite challenging. I won't say it's impossible, but that's why Google Research also has came up with this pre-doc positions, which I shared over LinkedIn also some days back. It's an awesome platform for undergrads, right? So you get to spend 2 years at Google Research immediately after undergrad. You can judge yourself before committing to the 5 years of PhD, that whether this research is actually for you. Because sitting in 3rd year, 4th year, everything looks very cool, like, oh, I want to do research. But once you step in the shoes, then you get the feel, okay, this is what the reality is. You may end up liking it, like I still do till date, and you may end up hating it. So it's good that you can test yourself and what it means like to work at a corporate research. So I would highly suggest to juniors like to take opportunities like pre-doc researcher role at Google. And why just Google? Like even Microsoft has that, Amazon has that, Facebook has, Adobe India has that. So majority of the labs now coming up with the so-called pre-doctoral roles, 1 or 2 year of contract, right? So if you do good in that, right, so that makes you already have a good impression in that research lab, right? So it would be easier for you to convert, right, in the research domain. So because here we are talking out as a SWE in Google and how to become a research SWE in Google Research. So SWE in Google, I've got very limited idea how to do. I'm not an expert in that. I'm suggesting how you can become a research SWE in Google Research. So it's highly recommended that you, if you have already not committed yourself to PhD or gotten some awesome offers, you can try to spend 1 or 2 years in these research labs. So let's say even if you spend 2 years in Adobe Research, right? So when you come out at the end of 2 years, everyone will recognize you, okay, this guy, this boy, this girl has done good research in a notable research lab. So let's call the candidate for an interview. In my case, I would also say that helped, right? Because by the time I applied for a full-time role, as I said, I've spent around 3 years at Google, 6 months Facebook, 6 months Twitter. So a major part of my PhD was spent with these organizations. It did take a toll on me because you have to manage your PhD and your internship, but that's how my journey has been. It does take a toll on you because you have to maintain your PhD also, but then you have to contribute equally nicely for your internships. So you do lose some weekends and some night sleeps, but yeah, cracking into research, I should be honest, it's tougher than, because research is a very small niche of the company. Any company you talk about, right? Not just Google, not just Facebook, it's a small niche. So the limited number of seats are available, so you have to stand out. And one thing which I've understood, you just don't need to be super highly intelligent to do that, but keep on doing good work over the years. Keep on pressing yourself. Try to go for internships, and yeah, then surely get the call. Whether you clear the interview or not, that's a different topic, but you will be considered at least for interviews.
Now, my next question is kind of domain specific. So I would like to ask, how do you proceed in the field of computer vision? Like, do you suggest some resources for that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Computer vision, right? So before thinking of computer vision, what I think juniors should know, newcomers should know is like it's image processing, right? So the stream started in the 1980s or 1990s with this. Image processing was the name at that point of time. As basically you have a sensor, you capture images, it becomes matrix. As soon as it becomes matrix, you start doing all this crazy operations. So firstly, you need to have very good basics on image processing. Why I would say that? So before you know how to do edge detection, what it means to run linear filters, what it means to run nonlinear filters, you should not jump directly to solve structure from motion. You should not suddenly jump to do 3D geometry, right? Like it's a gradual process. So I would say take up good coursework. If your university is providing an image processing first. Why I say that? Because now computer vision is a cool term being thrown around, right? So when you're in first or second year, you just say, I'll do computer vision. But you should first do image processing. That way you can stand in the research for a longer time. Like you will build up your basics. So do a good course on image processing. And I do suggest the book of Gonzalez, and that's kind of a Bible, right? So anyone trying to enter computer vision should first go through Gonzalez. I know it's a very big book. Take up one chapter at a time. There are a lot of study guides, forums available where people plan out. There might be courses in your universities also where it's a high chance your professors might also refer to that book. But do take up image processing. Once you take up image processing, then you move to computer vision. By computer vision, then I mean you look at stuffs like, as I was saying, like this key point estimators, like shift descriptors, surf descriptors, structure from motion, homography, all those stuff, right? So that would be the next step that you should look. That's usually, so at Kharagpur, that's very well named. So first we have an image processing, and then we have another course which is called Advanced Digital Image Processing, which is usually prerequisite is that you have done image processing first, else you will not be appreciating what's going on. So for that computer vision, again, look up at your university if they're providing, but I usually, what I did was, there's this awesome series by Professor Mubarak Shah from University of Central Florida. So his courses are, I mean, I always acknowledge that an online course cannot go into the rigorous of full mathematics, but he does a good, very brilliant job of mixing the amount of maths that needs to be fit in a 1 hour lecture and the amount of intuition that you need to digest the math. So you should definitely check out that that lecture series on Mubarak Shah. And I think once you do image processing and advanced this computer vision, then you are pretty much equipped with the fundamental knowledge. Now you can start reading up some papers, you will understand. So for example, people are now talking about neural radiance fields. So it's basically, again, homography, 3D geometry, but everything coupled together with neural nets. So once you have this idea, so let's say suppose the paper suddenly throws you a 3x3 homography matrix where the 9th element has been set to 1 for some reason, and you don't know why is it set to 1. It's a very textbook thing which you will learn in advanced computer vision. So you do up basic image processing, computer vision, and then you can be comfortable reading papers. I think that should help to get started. And also a very useful suggestion is that usually nowadays, since a lot of open source stuffs are available, we tend to just use libraries, right? So for example, we might just read in textbook, oh, okay, this is, we do edge detection in images. Okay, done. Let me just call MATLAB.edge detector. I mean, that's bad because reading something and implementing something is really different. So I would highly recommend you take up assignments like I want to implement like a Sobel edge detector by hand. I want to do like a discrete Fourier transform on images by hand. So I'm sure the universities might be having image processing laboratories where you are asked to do so. If by chance you are not attending, then do spend some time implementing some of those things by hand. Why it helps? It really makes sure you've understood. So as a good thing is that, let's say you are doing median filtering on images to remove noises. So you take a noisy image, you make your own version of that, and you already have the OpenCV version, right? So if you are good in implementing, then your version and OpenCV version will be closely similar, right? So firstly, it removes any doubt that whether you have understood or not. And then if you are successful, it also gives you the joy that, okay, even I can be a contributor to OpenCV's library, right? So that motivates learning, because if you just keep using libraries from at a very early level, it will not help, because when you actually then go into research, you need to code up your own filters, right? Because you will not be publishing papers with median filters. You will be publishing with some, let's say, some crazy median filters where you write the function of your own. So you need to know how to work at pixel level. And also in companies like, I obviously can't disclose the name, in various companies, like you get asked to implement, let's say, convolution, backpropagation in Python. So they really want to see whether, for example, a convolution is a linear operation. Can you break a 2D convolution into two 1D convolutions and code it up? So if you just do a 2D convolution, it's a quadratic in terms of the kernel size. If you break it up into two 1D convolution, it's linear in terms of kernel size. And that's actually how majority of the deep learning libraries which use convolution are implemented. Those are the funs when you start implementing by hand some of the things. It's highly recommended you do that. And it also gets asked in research interviews.
So this is kind of the last question now. And it is for the newcomers, that is the freshers and the sophomores. So since they just joined college, most of them aren't sure whether they should go for a job or research. So as you're having a great experience in research world, can you give us an idea what is the actual work that we have to go through in the future if we choose a research-based careers, and what are the pros and cons of it? And finally, what message would you like to give to your juniors?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, whether to go for research. So I think by going for research, they might have meant whether to go for like a master's or a PhD and then whatever comes up after that, versus directly joining a job that you get out of campus or BPOs. Well, here's the thing. So for my personal view, like I was never comfortable, or I never really liked like the core software engineering stuffs, right? Like they are quite challenging, I know. With the help of those technologies, our world is moving, that's fine. But somehow it didn't really hit me that I am interested to do that. So I always wanted to work on something where I have to do some math, I have to question myself, and every day would be ambiguous, right? So I do like that. So even today when I wake up, we are running a research project for last 3 months. Every day we are failing with a research intern. So that's what I love doing, to work under ambiguity. Software jobs which we get usually out of college might not always provide that, because it is challenging from an engineering aspect, but might not be challenging from a research or an ambiguity kind of an aspect. So that's one thing which drove me not to invest myself in software, the usual software jobs like building up systems and like that. But now the question of going for research or not. So if you really want to create impactful work, let's not just in 2-3 years, let's say 5 or 10 years down. I would highly suggest at least go for masters here in India or MS, because at that point of time you do the advanced coursework, which is always not possible at undergrad level. So unless you do good coursework, you really don't know what all things you are yet to explore, right? So unless you do, let's say, convex optimization, you don't know like what, if you know that, what all things you can solve. After you know that, okay, this all things I can. So at least I would say, if you want to stay in researchy kind of stuff, don't invest yourself to a job. Hopefully, if there's no financial burden or liabilities for you, do at least try to get a master's because let's say 15 years down the line, right? So we are expecting everybody will have an undergrad degree, right? So then what sets you apart going into the future, right? So it will be, firstly, people will understand that you are a master's or PhD. That means you have proved yourself to be interested to do research, not just do the job that you got after that. And then why I did PhD? Because obviously if you do PhD, then two things open up, right? One is the corporate research job that you get. Obviously you get hired by great startups. If you like that, you get a chance to get hired by the top tech companies. They also posted some days back in LinkedIn that even in India now, if you do PhDs, there's a good chance that you might be getting absorbed in a lot of best tech companies in their research labs. So you directly get to do research, right? So maybe if you graduated as an undergrad, you might not climb up the ladder so soon that you will be doing novel research. You might still be in a research team, but you might be pushing things into production. You need a little bit of research background, but you papers might not be actually pushing yourself to try totally new random ideas. But if you have a PhD, there's a good chance you get absorbed as research tree or research scientist, right? And if you don't want to invest yourself in PhD, because that's a lot to ask from everyone, even if you get a master's, if you want to do research, try to look out for those companies, try to reach out to those people you know who are in the research teams so that you get absorbed on those teams. So why do I say that? So let's suppose you join, let's say, Google's camera, say Facebook's metaverse, Facebook Reality Lab after your master's as an engineer. You work for 4 or 5 years there. So by the time you work 4 or 5 years, you have a decent understanding how the people are working in 3D. You will be pushing a lot of things in production. Then maybe next job switch, you can try to look for a job which asks you to do research. But if you are just graduating out, if you are graduating out and not doing a higher study and not getting absorbed in such companies, there is a possibility you might not be able to shift into core research companies. So yeah, things are pretty open-ended. People do get a lot of chances, but my bottom line to the juniors is that if you love solving problems at scale, then if you love, let's say, working under deadlines, production, open sourcing gives you a lot of interest, then maybe you can stick with software engineering, because people do make rapid progresses there also, right? Because that's what majority of the tech companies are and the tech people are doing. But if there's some niche that you want to explore, like you might love natural language processing, you might love operating systems research, something, then at least invest yourself to get a master's. Because let's say you graduate out of a IIT, ISCs, IIITs, NITs with a master's degree, then I'm quite sure the profile of job that you get, I'm not talking in terms of just salary and those are secondary steps to look for. I think that the kind of work that you will get is expected that after masters you will do more research oriented or be contributing to a research team than when you get a job right after undergrad. Because obviously as an undergrad you have limited experience, so companies will try to hire you in a role which doesn't require so much of expertise. But yeah, nothing to take away from the story. So let's say in the worst case you still join a job as an undergrad, right? Like all of these companies have their research division. Like Google has Google Research, Facebook has FAIR, Twitter has got its own Cortex, Qualcomm has got its own Qualcomm AI Research. So what I'm suggesting, Microsoft has got its Microsoft Research. So what I'm suggesting, so let's say at that point of time you thought, okay, I'm not doing my masters, I'm not doing my PhD. I have an offer from Microsoft, who cares, let me just join. It's good, it's easy to get tempted, I can understand that. But then after 2 or 3 years, oh, I should do research, then what should you do? So here's the suggestion. All of these companies have got their research division, right? So even when you are there as a SWE role, you can start collaborating and talking to the research people that, okay, so there's this concept, the majority of the companies got 20% projects, right? So you work on your core project 80% of the time, and then once a week, it's up to you, companies roll out internal 20% projects. So let's say you say, oh, I want to work on Facebook's face recognition team. I want to be a 20% employee there. So things like that happen. So maybe you spend 1 year as a 20% research employee in another research field. And once you build up that rapport, you build up that culture of doing research, and then you can do internal slides, right? It's similar, like after the IITs and the IEEE results come, you don't get stream of your choice, you do good in first few semesters and then you try to slide internally. I'm just making aware the younger generation that such kind of slides are also possible in companies. So it's not just do or die that if you just join as a SWE after your undergrad, you will never be into research. This is one of the way you can be, even without doing masters. If you keep on proving to the research vertical that I have worked nicely as a 20% candidate for last 1 year, 6 months, why don't you interview me now as a full-time in your team? And obviously you do your background studies, homework, all the maths that you need for interview. But then that's also a good chance to shift yourself, right? I think it clarifies to some extent because it was a very open-ended question.
It was really, helpful, and we got many insights on this.
On the behalf of the entire IEEE student batch in IIT Durgapur, I would like to once again thank you for joining us and sharing such insightful thoughts. It was a pleasure to interview you.